ladies and gentlemen, kicking off the first stop on his world tour, our new president and prophet, Russell M. Nelson. You say you want some revelation. Well, here you go. It's gonna blow your freaking mind.
Hey, greetings, brothers and sisters. Welcome to the weekly Mormon News Roundup, where D-Vase and Al ruminate on the great and spacious beehive. This is for week of August 28th, 2022, and oddly enough, episode 2022. 2022, no, just episode 22. We haven't been around that long. Again, very exciting show this week. Church assistant historian Kate Holbrook passed away, so we're sorry to hear about that. But we do have some really big news coming up. We've got controversial church donations in Africa. Mormon missionaries have gone viral for all the wrong reasons. We'll tell you about that. Change.org petition seeking to make background checks mandatory for LDS leaders. And BYU has banned a racist volleyball fan, and the inspired launch of the MormonMovieReviews. And this is a really exciting episode. It's the first time that me and my co-host D-Vase are broadcasting in person.
Wow, it's great to be here. I'm up here in northern Utah with you, Al, and I'm sitting in here in your kitchen. We're ready to go, right?
That's right. This is where the magic happens every week.
Well, as when I look at your house, I think of what Jesus said. In my Father's house are many mansions. So you got quite a place here, and I'm really grateful that you invited me to join you in your home. So it's quite a drive. I'm out here in Utah for a couple of days on business, so I figured this would be a time for us to get together.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it worked out really good. So we're glad to have you here. This mansion is about 800 square feet.
Well, he didn't say how big the mansions were. He didn't say. He just said that there were many of them. He didn't necessarily say how big. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, it's really great to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me. And I got a chance to meet your wife and to pet your pet rabbit. And I haven't seen your cats and the rest of your farm animals here, but
they all get sent outside to do their own thing while we ruminate on the great and spacious beehive.
You betcha. Yep. Now, so it's a special episode for all of us here. So I do have we're going to kick things off with the Mormon joke of the week. And Al, this is kind of a long joke, so bear with me. Are you ready for it?
All right, let's do it.
I had to practice this a few times because it is kind of long, and I do need to refer to my notes. So this is going to be kind of a long joke. So okay. let me kick it off here. A Mormon walks into a bar. Just kidding. That's it. Sorry.
Quite the lead up.
Okay. That's it.
Joke's on me.
That was it. That's all you get. Now, we have a website out there. It's called MormonNewsRoundup.org, and you can send us an email as well. We're at kolob@MormonNewsRoundup.org. That's KOLOB at MormonNewsRoundup.org. That's with two N's. And feel free to reach out to us if you want to get in touch with your humble hosts here. Now, let's a couple of follow-ups from last week. Is that AB sex abuse scandal still out there, Al, or is what's going on there?
It's still out there. Let's say it's kind of moved to second page instead of first page.
Yeah, like I said, I have a subscription to a Google Alert for Mormon and LDS that sends me everything every day. And for about 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks, every single one of the stories was AP sex abuse all over. And you're finally starting to see that peter out a little bit. And it's taken a full month for it to simmer down. I mean, it's still there a little bit, but it is not in your face.
Yeah.
So, but we do want to follow up on it just a little bit, even though it is moving into the background. And we had a Change.org petition that was just dropped this last week. And what is this Change.org petition trying to do, Al?
So the Change.org petition has been started up to mandate background checks for all volunteers in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
And they don't do that now currently?
Not currently, unless they're already in a state where it's mandated, like California.
Right. And this is from Jane Christie and 21st Century Saints podcast. And that's a very faithful podcast. This isn't from some anti-Mormons or somebody with an axe to grind. But the 21st Century Saints podcast is one of the most faithful and popular podcasts out there. And one of their hosts, I believe, Jane Christie, started this petition in response to the Associated Press article, even though technically the Associated Press article, a background check actually technically wouldn't have helped in that particular case, would it?
No, it wouldn't. But this really is the right thing to do, and I think that's why the faithful are heading it up and trying to get this implemented.
Yeah, so they want to do two things. Number one, ensure that all members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints who will or who may work with children And vulnerable adults will be subject to criminal background checks. And number 2, we ask that our supporters raise the issue of safeguarding within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints with both church leadership and elected representatives so that faith groups can continue to work towards best practice. So I think that I definitely am in favor of this change.org petition. What do you think, Al?
I agree. I think that, like I said, this is the right thing to do. And everything that they're asking for is completely reasonable, and it would certainly put some safety measures in place to prevent further abuse within the church.
I don't see any downsides to this whatsoever.
No, I'm going to sign it.
Absolutely. And you will link to all these articles in our show notes. Now, the number 2 follow-up from last week, we discussed last week, we had on Dr. John Turner from George Mason University, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we did.
Now, we talked about last week about that article that said that that LDS bishops actually don't have or should not have priest penitent privileges, which is a very controversial opinion, one that Dr. Turner was not necessarily in favor of. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So, and I discussed my own experience working at BYU for quite a few years, and that I felt that as a BYU employee that when I would go into, as a former BYU employee now, when I used to go into my bishop for an ecclesiastical endorsement, that I didn't feel that I had any priest confidentiality whatsoever at the time. Mm-hmm. And this new article that has dropped this morning, Al, what is this new article saying?
BYU requires new hires to waive their right to clergy confidentiality. So you called it.
Are they listening to this podcast, Al?
Maybe. I'm sure that somebody is. We have at least 50 people out there listening to us.
I think, on our subscribers, I think we have about 61 subscribers on Anchor. Mm-hmm. I haven't checked on Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube, I think we're hovering around 10. So it's not a lot of people, but still, new hires need to waive their right to clergy confidentiality. Mm-hmm. So is this a positive thing or is this a negative thing?
There's the 2 sides to this. On the positive side, at least the church is being transparent about it. On the negative side, because it's a church school, they're taking a step away from that clergy or confidentiality privilege that other members are entitled to. So it can be argued that it's not really fair. But it can also be said that, well, at least they're being upfront about it. I mean, the church is also upfront about. I've seen a couple of posts in the last month or so showing that the church requires people to have a current temple recommend in order to get a job. Well, they're being upfront about that. If you're going to be like a temple custodian or janitor going in and cleaning the temple, they're going to want you to have a current temple recommend. And I think that's completely reasonable. And they're being upfront with you. It's no different than, some places saying, well, we require you to have a bachelor's degree. We require you to have this certification in order to operate a forklift or whatever. I consider it's one of those things where the church can lay out its requirements. Whether I agree with those requirements or whether those requirements have anything to do with a person's ability to do the job, doesn't matter. They're being straightforward about it. They're also a religion. In addition to being a corporation, they are a religion, so they can make those calls themselves.
Al, I know you used to go to BYU,
Mm-hmm.
but were you ever a BYU employee of any capacity?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I worked in their moving department.
Right, so this technically did apply to you at some point in time.
Had to have an ecclesiastical endorsement to work there.
Right. I think you summarized it extremely well. So those are our follow-ups from last week. Mm-hmm. And let's go into our first article of this week. And unfortunately, our hearts go out to Kate Holbrook's family, mm-hmm. because she was a very popular assistant church historian, full-time employee of the church. And she passed away this last week, I believe at the age of 50 years old. And she was extremely popular, especially she made the podcast circuits. She went on a lot of different shows. She was extremely visible, and she definitely did not light her candle and put it under a bushel. She was a real inspiration to especially a lot of women in the church. And she was also not afraid to tackle the most difficult and challenging aspects of church history, especially when talking about polygamy in particular. That seemed to be a specific area of emphasis that she was able to discuss And I think that her approach tried to make, polygamy, she was a defender of it. And, obviously as a church employee, she upheld the church's position, but she was certainly beloved by a great number of people. Now, from this particular article, I want to find a quote here. Kate, here's the article from a quote from the article. Kate explained her passion for church history in this way, quote, "I find church history inspiring because I see the love of God in it over and over. And I also see people who have the love of God in them and people who are resourceful. Church history puts real stories in my heart," end quote. And I just think that's a lovely sentiment. Unfortunately, she passed away from a rare form of eye cancer, and she didn't really tell anybody about it. She basically, I don't know how to say it, kind of suffered in silence.
Yeah, some people are rather private about, especially health issues such as that. So I can understand where she's coming from with not being very open about it. Still, it when you're not very open about it, it does come as a little bit of a shock to people.
Yeah, it does. So I appreciated listening to her. I didn't necessarily read a lot of what she wrote, but since she was on the podcasting circuit a lot, I appreciated the fact that she was willing to tackle the tough issues. Yeah. And there's been a lot of people in the church who haven't been willing to do that. So I have a lot of respect for her and for what she was trying to accomplish. And I think that what she said specifically about church history, that it, brings joy to her heart and it's part of our living history, that really resonates with me.
Hey everybody, it's D-Vase here. Thanks so much for listening to the Mormon News Roundup. If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Allow me to explain. Anchor has the tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It's everything that you need to make a podcast all in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. So download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Now, our next article here is from Richard Osling, and this was on religionunplugged.com, and this was published on August 22nd, 2022. And it's Latter-day Saints' incremental changes on doctrine adds up to a solid religion story. So what is this article trying to do, Al?
So this one kind of grabbed me as a very interesting, for being an opinion article, I thought he makes some really good points here about just what the steps the church has been taking in the last, I'll say, decade or so in order to make changes and to rebrand itself and to go into a new era.
Yeah, and we talked about last week with Dr. Turner, we had a poll on that's available on Anchor that talked about the church's biggest news stories of the last 5 years. And this article also kind of goes at that. They gave a summary of the top 10 items in this change-resistant faith, interpreted in terms of Jana Reese's policy preferences. So number one, she talked about the 2019 reversal of a 2015 policy that ended automatic excommunication of same-sex couples and allows baptisms and blessings for their children.
Yeah,
how that had been reversed back in late 2018, early 2019.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think I can speak for you when I say that is a positive step.
Yeah, it's certainly a positive step. This is, especially when you're talking about a church that's in favor of families and it's all about families, this was something that was done to mend the fences with different types of families than the church usually likes to see.
Yep, and then number two, it said in 2019 there was some progress on women. Actually, the quote is "a little progress on women," end quote. They changed some of the temple endowment rituals that some people perceive to be sexist. They also allowed women to be official witnesses to ordinances and did a couple of other things that gave women a little bit more control or a little bit more say in the church.
Yeah, they've been making progress slowly over the decades, allowing women to offer prayers in certain meetings or in certain capacities. And so this is just another step in the right direction. Baby steps.
Very, very slow steps. So that's why the article says it is a, quote, a little progress, end quote. And also we covered this about 3 weeks ago. The church ordained or set apart the first female chaplain as well.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they're making progress, and these are all positive steps here. And then the next one, which is number 4, what is that? Number 3, says white Americans continue to dominate global leadership in the church. However, the 2 newly named apostles that have been put in since President Nelson took over, they're not from North America or Europe.
Yeah, I think the church has heard the message that for being a worldwide religion, they need to be a little bit more diverse in their selections of leadership.
Yeah, they're making progress. And they also, the next one that they highlight is that young adult missionaries can contact families weekly rather than twice a year. And their access to mental health services has improved.
About time.
Yeah, should have been changed long ago.
Yeah, I mean, when kids are paying their own way or their family's paying their way, I think that it just behooves the church to kind of loosen the grip or the control, I should say, and let them be people. I mean, they're volunteers, and yeah, they're helping. They're missionaries. They're doing their thing, but it doesn't have to be such a tight-fisted thing of, oh no, you can't ever contact anybody that's from back home.
Right, yeah. So this is another positive step forward.
Yeah.
The next one is with the demise of the Boy Scouts, the church has overhauled the youth program and now has equal spending on boys and girls programs. So you view this as a positive step, Al? Or?
Somewhat, I would say the positive step there being that the equal spending with the girls programs, because that's something that's been taken a backseat to the boy programs for a long time. As far as the church severing its ties with the Boy Scouts and then replacing it with their own youth program, I don't know that that's necessarily a big positive. I think they do a lot of the same things that they were doing before, but also with a lot of the things that they were doing before, you might see the same kind of abuse that we were seeing before too. So I'd like to see some of those measures put in place to curb that.
My oldest son is an Eagle Scout, and he finished his Eagle before the church severed its ties with the Boy Scouts. But my younger 2 sons, they're already halfway through the Boy Scouts when the church severed its ties. So we needed to take them over to a different congregation or a different troop so that they could finish out. Getting a certificate that says that you completed a young men's program in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints does not have anywhere near the gravitas of saying that I'm an Eagle Scout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So in that way, I see it as a step back. Mm-hmm. But I think we're going to have to see how the Young Men's Program operates, I think, a little bit more before we can totally reserve, before we can totally pass judgment. Mm-hmm. The next one on this list is the church institutes lockdowns of temples and wards to protect people from COVID-19.
Yeah, they were made to.
Yeah, I mean,
they didn't do it voluntarily.
No, I mean, I don't see how you can get any credit for doing something that the government said that. If the government said you need to lock all this stuff down and turn it off, and the church says, "Well, we did that." But if you look in the past, you think about polygamy. The government told the church to get rid of polygamy, and they didn't comply, or they only did so at the very most. So I guess it is a positive step. I just don't think it's. I don't think it's too big of a positive step.
Yeah, they could do better.
Yeah, the youths. The next one is youths are allowed to bring an adult to the standard closed doors discussions with ecclesiastical leaders. Meaning at any time, and this is something that Sam Young was saying, is that he wanted to make it mandated. Now, it is not mandated yet, but it's authorized.
Yeah, that's a big step in the right direction. Any youth, and I would encourage every youth that's going into an interview with a bishop or a leader to take advantage of that. Bring a parent. If you're not comfortable with your parent, bring an adult that you can trust.
That's a great idea.
Grab somebody that, if you're close with your young men's leader, go ahead. Or I don't even know if they have young men's leaders anymore, but grab hold of somebody, your buddy's dad, or something like that.
Absolutely. I think it's yet another positive step forward.
Yeah.
And now the next one, we're on number 8, is there's a more relational and relaxed approach to leaders' mandatory home visits with members. So they rebranded home teaching to ministering.
Yeah.
Is that a positive step, Al? Or?
Seems like it. Yeah, they're not quite so invasive or intrusive about it. So that's better. Because I mean, they hammered on that for a long time with the priesthood members that you need to get your home teaching done, and we got to get to 100% of people this month.
Yeah, and that was whether they really wanted to be home taught or not in some cases. So I think a more ministering, which is a little bit more of a chill, relaxed, more relational, more friendly, less about the numbers, more about the people.
Yeah, what can we do for you instead of what's going on in your house?
I think that's another positive step.
Yeah.
Number 9 is President Nelson scraps the Hill Cumorah pageant. Now, why did he do that, Al?
Well, the quote here says that it was deemed by Reese a cultural relic that was cheesy and racially problematic, and maybe he heard her, because I think she's absolutely right. There was a lot of blackface going on.
Yep.
There was a lot of, the church has had problems with pageants for a long time going, where they end up getting some strange ideas that get thrown into the pageants that don't necessarily jive with what the church's official stance is. And so I think this is a good thing to get rid of those pageants and just kind of keep everything more correlated.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And finally, number 10 is the Sunday regimen of worship. Used to be 3 hours, and now it's been trimmed down to 2 hours. Now, would you think that's positive, or what do you think?
I think you're going to have a lot more happy members that are willing to attend church on Sunday if it's only for 2 instead of 3 hours.
And I think the church's research department that sends out the emails to people for them to do surveys, I think they definitely took that into consideration as something that this is something that the members have wanted for a long time. So when I look at all of these 10, when I look at these top 10 from Latter-day Saints, Incremental Changes on Doctrine Add Up to a Solid Religion Story, all of these are taking place under President Nelson. And I would say that unequivocally, 9 out of the 10, I give a 2 big thumbs up on. And the other one is I'm like 50-50 on, not necessarily a thumbs down, but I'm like maybe 50-50 on it. And so I think that what President Nelson has done as far as changing the trajectory of the church has, for the vast majority, I think has been positive.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Absolutely. Now, our next article there is also, we're covering a lot actually from the official church news sources this week. So just in case anybody out there thinks that we like to cherry pick these articles, we're getting you right from the Deseret News and the church news on almost all of these articles this week. Because there's absolutely nothing wrong with the church news or Deseret News. They give us a lot of great information. There's no reason that we shouldn't use them. There's no reason we shouldn't use them. So this next article is by Mary Richards on 23rd August, 2022. That says, Church donates hundreds of desks, Bibles, and Korans to a school in Kenya. So what's going on with that article, Al?
So the school in Kenya called, good luck, Al, to pronounce it, Mvideni Primary School, I'm guessing, is on the southeast coast of Kenya. They had a big problem with they've got crowded classrooms. I mean, it's kind of a similar problem to what we would have in the U.S. with a lot of kids and not enough resources. But what they've had is, these kids sitting on floors trying to learn, trying to, figure out a bunch of stuff. I mean, learning how to write by basically drawing in the sand and, cutting letters that way. And really poor conditions, only a couple of latrines to go around for all these kids. And just, it's a good place where a lot of good could be done. I'll say that. And
the church delivered desks. They remodeled 5 of their classrooms. They built 20 new bathrooms, new showers. And what I find most interesting, the reason I really wanted to include this is that they also donated 100 Bibles and 100 copies of the Quran to the school. And I just kind of leaves me... am I making too much of this? Because I'm a little bit puzzled by the Quran donation.
I'd be, on that same note, I'd be curious to see what translation of the Bible they were given. I'm curious to see if it was the King James that's published by the church with all the footnotes, or if it was a standard King James version, or if it was an NIV version, or what it could have been.
Yeah, and I read through the article, and it does not say whether this particular humanitarian effort was done through one of the church's humanitarian arms, which is LDS Charities. Was it done through LDS Charities, or was it done through the church itself? Good
question, because it certainly doesn't say.
Yeah, it does not say. And obviously there is a difference between the two, because LDS Charities is generally a pass-through from donations from usually well-to-do members who give to the church, and then the church repurposes and passes through those to give donations? Or was it from the church itself, which is what we see in the humanitarian report? And of course, it'd be nice if we just had a little bit more transparency about these items. I do want to go back to what I said about the Qurans. I kind of looked this up. I went back. There's a 1978 First Presidency statement that specifically mentions that Muhammad is, quote, one of the great religious leaders of the world, end quote, who received a portion of God's light, and affirms that moral truths were given to these individuals by God to enlighten whole nations and bring a higher level of understanding to individuals. And then there's another quote here by Hugh Nibley in March 1972 Ensign that says that the Quran hails Jesus as a true prophet and a great one. Yet Muslim theology rejects all his teachings about the Son of God as false. It teaches that Mary was, quote, the woman of truth, end quote, who conceived Jesus by the Holy Ghost and bore him when she was still a virgin. Yet it deplores the idea of God, that God should have a son. So the church is giving to these children something that they acknowledge themselves by a First Presidency statement only contains a portion of God's truth, and in another statement says is completely wrong on what a lot of people would argue to be one of the core principles of salvation, which is the divinity of God's Son, Jesus. And that's why I want to ask you, Al, I don't understand this. Why is the church giving Qurans to people that don't lead to going to the temple or becoming tithe payers or joining the church? I don't get it.
If I'm going to offer my opinion, I'm looking at the news over the last month, and I think the church is just looking for a really good PR move to help scrub up its image on the world stage, and say, hey, we're not downplaying other religions anymore, so we're gonna meet them on their terms, on their ground, and help them out where they need it. It's a really good thing, I think, that we're doing to meet Muslims where Muslims are at by giving them donated Qurans, and meeting Christians where Christians are at. That one, like I said, I'm curious to see if it was the church's version of the King James Bible that was given.
Interesting. As you were saying that, Al, I thought about this some more, and I couldn't figure it out, but I think what you said is right. It is more PR. Think about where is the church doing well as far as proselytization is concerned?
Africa.
No question about it. And there's several African nations that are either primarily Muslim or majority Muslim. And the church wants to be able to have access to these African countries. And so if these other countries, governments see this article and they say, well, in Kenya, the church is remodeling schools, they're giving out Qurans. Well, hey, the Church of Jesus Christ, they sound pretty good. Maybe we should invite them to come into our country. Maybe we should loosen up restrictions. Maybe we should support them a little bit more. It's all about the PR of giving them a little something that they can feel good about, so that then you can open the door later and give them the Book of Mormon.
I think the church will find the more that they do that, the more it will work. So
I believe so.
I applaud them for their efforts.
You bet. Now, our next article here is actually a tweet here that was put out by Ryan Burge. And he's a very famous researcher, I want to say at the University of Illinois. He's a statistician. But he ran some numbers here on how much, he asked a question in his tweet, and it says, how much does religion impact fertility? And what was the answer to the question?
He answers it himself, a lot. About 75% of 40-year-old Mormons have kids. And it's 40% of atheists or agnostics. So a lot, there's a big difference there. Majority of atheists and agnostics never have children, but 75% of LDS people do.
Yeah, so if you're a Mormon versus an atheist, you are twice as likely to have children. So it is obviously a huge amount of correlation in between those two. I find that to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's very noteworthy.
Yep, we're going to go through fast and furious this podcast here, Alan. We're going right to our next article, which is the Stone Cold Sober. You remember that?
Yes, Princeton Review. So this is the Princeton Review puts out a list of top schools for whatever reason that they have rated all the schools, and BYU has proudly claimed the number one Stone Cold Sober title for who knows, I think since 98 when they started doing it.
Go Cougars.
Yeah, exactly. So now they're just doing a little bit of rebranding. Now what the Princeton Review has decided to do is change it to called Cancel the Keg.
Oh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they're retiring the Stone Cold Sober designation.
Yeah, they're just renaming it.
Oh, to cancel the keg?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And where is BYU on that list now?
Number 1.
Oh, as you would imagine.
Yeah, number 1. Completely opposite of, I can't remember the name of the university in Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep, they're they love their beer in Madison.
Yeah, they do. Yep. They do. And Syracuse University is number 1 on lots of hard liquor, and University of Alabama is on top of lots of Greek life. Now, they also this article also brings up where BYU appeared on a number of different lists, and I think a lot of them are really interesting. So they're still number 1 on Cancel the Keg. Mm-hmm. They're number 1 on Pot's Not Hot.
Yep.
They're number 1 on Scotch and Soda, Hold the Scotch. Mm-hmm. They're number 2 on Best Value for Schools.
Yep.
Number 2 on Best College Library, because that library is amazing.
It is a really impressive library, yeah.
I used to be a janitor in that library back when I was an undergraduate, by the way, which was actually one of my favorite jobs at BYU.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I liked it. And number 2, Top West Entrepreneurship Undergraduate. Mm-hmm. And number 2 on LGBTQ Unfriendly.
Yeah, it's not all positive.
Whoops. Well, let's just go right past that one. We don't want to dwell on that. Okay, and number 3 is Most Religious Students.
I'm surprised. I'm curious who number 1 is on that one.
Gee whiz, I don't know, maybe Notre Dame. It's hard to
it seems like there's some Christian college down in
Liberty
the South
University.
somewhere.
Liberty University.
Yeah, that's the one.
Could be. It's because BYU brings in all those atheistic athletes, probably.
Yeah.
And Liberty University doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm half joking here. I'm only half joking. And they're number 5 on best run colleges. But anyway, you can look at the article, and it shows where BYU and also the University of Utah appears on a number of these different lists. Mm-hmm. And for the vast majority, BYU is just a tremendous value.
Yeah.
And they just do a great job. And we highlighted the one area in particular that we thought that they could definitely improve upon.
Yeah, there's they do best value, or one of the best values, because the church subsidizes a lot of their education.
Yeah, you bet. Now, according to the Widow's Mite, it costs about $2.5 billion for the church to run all of the BYU schools that it has. And BYU brings in about $1 billion of federal money to help run those schools. So they need to make up the tuition difference of the $1.5 billion. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, maybe half of that is tuition. We could probably just say, I'm spitballing here, but about half of that would be tuition. So the church probably somewhere between $500 million and $500 million and $1 billion of true subsidy for those BYU educations, and that's a tremendous subsidy.
Sure is.
Now, speaking of, we were just talking about in the last article about LGBTQ at BYU, but a pair of Mormons have now gone viral after being diverted from the path of righteousness by a divine LGBTQ doormat.
Yeah.
What's that? A divine doormat? I've never heard of that before.
This one we're heading over to thepoke.co.uk from August 26, 2022. Unag Keating reports that a TikToker named Jamie Faust94 has shared their eDoorbell's live view of how a pair of Mormon missionaries, and you probably have seen this. If you haven't, it's all over the place. They get repelled. They pull up to the doorstep, take a look at the doormat and what it says, which it says the gayest place in town.
All in rainbow. So the doormat says gayest place in town, all in big letters and a nice big rainbow.
Yep. The missionaries take a look at that, look up, and then walk off.
And that's it? They don't ring the doorbell? They don't do anything?
They don't knock. They don't nothing. They're like, okay, we're defeated.
They looked at the doormat for, how long did they look at this doormat for?
Just for a couple seconds.
Just enough to read it?
Yeah, just enough to read it and realize, nope. Right out of there.
So much for the Book of Mormon musical. Hello, my name is Elder Price. Nope, I guess not.
No.
My name isn't Elder Price. I'm out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my goodness.
And this Jamie, the owner of the house, or the person on TikTok said, for everyone asking, this is the doormat that I have on my porch. I got from Target during Pride Month. So back in June, they just happened to be in Target and had big old, doormat. It says gayest place in town.
So you think this is going to work on other missionaries?
I don't know, but I think you'll probably start seeing a lot more of these doormats pop up.
This TikTok video is the best thing that could have possibly happened for this doormat.
Yeah, it really is.
Because sales probably tripled after this.
How many people have asked that question time and time again? how do I get the missionaries to stop knocking on my dang door?
I think we finally have the answer to that.
Exactly. I live in Utah, and I know a couple of my good friends have been asking me, so what do I do to keep the missionaries from knocking on my door? I'm going to give them that doormat.
Well, okay, there's the doormat, but I will also give you the other pro tip. But, when I was a missionary, it always blew my mind that I would knock on a door on somebody's house. They would open it, and then immediately they would say, "Get out of here." Mm-hmm. Okay, that's not the right approach. The right approach is, don't answer the door. Mm-hmm. If you don't want to talk to the missionaries, why in the world would you open the door to them? Mm-hmm. It makes no sense.
Exactly.
So if you want to be left alone by missionaries, never answer your door, and pretty soon they will not be coming around anymore. Exactly. I mean, it's just, you don't need a doormat. It's just, there's your pro tip for the week, okay?
I mean, my front door, I've got, the half of my front door is window, so I can just pull back the curtain and stare uncomfortably at the people on the other side as long as I want until they leave.
With Ring cameras these days, you can literally just look at them and do nothing. I mean, I don't understand how people, I don't understand that. Okay, but This goes directly into our Mormon News Roundup poll of the week.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is available on Anchor only, but if you come on over to Anchor, you can interact with us on this poll. So let me ask you this question, Al. I want to get your response here. It says, how should the viral LDS missionaries have reacted when they encountered a, quote, gayest place on earth, end quote, doormat?
Oh, this is going to be a good one.
Okay, so so what they did is they came in, they looked at it, and they just hightailed it out of there. But what should have been their reaction? Okay, so is it number one?
Number one, simply follow Wendy Nelson's inspired counsel, pray the gay away, then get the heck out of there. # close call.
That was a close call, wasn't it?
It sure was.
What could have possibly happened if they knocked on that door?
Yeah, she might have a point. Maybe they should have just offered a prayer and then left.
Yeah, get the heck out of there. # close call.
Yeah.
When you say pray the gay away, I thought that meant that the gay person was supposed to go, but in this case, it was the opposite.
Exactly.
So it makes no sense. makes no sense. The pray the gay away doesn't mean that I leave.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm confused. I need Wendy. I need Wendy Nelson. I need to pay more attention to Wendy Nelson's talks because I don't think I'm getting them right.
Yeah.
Or is it number two?
Number two, they should chisel the proclamation to the family into their driveway in all caps, one inspired letter at a time.
That'll show them out.
Yeah, it'll also get them arrested.
Okay. But I like the visual. I like the visual of they wake up they come back later that night. In the morning, they wake up and there's the proclamation of the family chiseled into their driveway in stone.
Yeah. I'm not sure that the mission president would condone that kind of action. That's a lot of time to chisel it letter by letter, all caps.
Well, when something's important now, time is not. We shouldn't be thinking about how long something takes. If what you're doing is right,
true,
you should do it right. Or is it number three?
Three, don't sweat it. Just come back later on. Splits with Charlie Bird. # Cosmo FTW.
Yeah, FTW. What is that for the young kids out there?
I have no idea.
For the win.
For the win. Okay.
So # Cosmo for the win.
I gotta ask the young kids what that means.
Well, I put you on the spot there. So don't sweat it. Wait a minute. Who is Charlie Bird, by the way? Look at the hashtag there, Al.
Well, I guess he's the former Cosmo.
Right.
He was the mascot for BYU. He was the guy in the Cosmo costume.
And he came out as gay. Right, he came out as gay. So that's why I'm saying these missionaries, don't worry about it. Just come back on splits with Charlie Bird. And I'm sure they'll listen to him. # Cosmo for the win.
All right, I'm with you now.
Okay, man. These jokes are. If you have to spend 30 seconds explaining a joke, it's probably not a very good joke. But
it wasn't a bad joke.
Okay, all right. So, sounds good. Or is it number four?
Number four, they did the right thing. Jesus said, "Go ye into all the world to every creature." Except the gays. # am I right?
The # am I right? Yeah, I think it's at the end of Mark. Go ye into all the world, preach my gospel unto every creature, and lo, I will be with you to the end, except the gays.
Except the gays.
I think that may be in the New World Translation. I'm not sure.
Be. Yeah.
I'm not sure about that. Or is it number five?
Number five, dust the feet and move out. Life is way too short to share God's only message of joy and peace with the LGBTQ community.
I mean, life is short, Al. So...
Dust in the feet. That's one thing that we saw on under the banner of heaven.
Right, yeah. I mean, you dust the feet, you move out, and I mean,
Yep.
God's only message is love, joy, and peace, and eternal happiness. I mean, life's too short to mess around, isn't it?
Yep.
I mean, that's what I think. Or is it number 6?
Charity never faileth, unless it is sporting pressed white shirts, tight cropped haircuts, and shiny black name tags.
Yeah, I guess charity does fail it then.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately it did in this case. Or is it number 7?
Simple answer. Love the sinner, hate the doormat.
Now that reminds.
I like that.
what is the actual saying that goes? That sounds familiar.
Actual saying goes, love the sinner, hate the sin.
Oh, love the sinner, hate the sin.
And what's so funny about this is, okay, the people who have this doormat at their house, it's a husband and wife. They're heterosexual. They're just advocates for the LGBTQ community.
Oh man! So I guess
that's what I find to be really funny about this.
So the discernment was a bit lacking, is what you're trying to say. Okay, so discernment was lacking. So, or is it, like I said, number 7? Simple. Love the sinner, hate the doormat. Okay, so you have your 7 choices out there.
I'm going with number 7. Yes. I love that one. Love the sinner, hate the doormat.
Okay, nice. Love the sinner, hate the doormat. That does make a lot of sense. I gotcha.
Yeah.
This podcast is brought to you by our friends over at Signature Books, www.signaturebooks.com. We invite you to check out their latest book written by Romney Burke, which is entitled Susie Young Gates, Daughter of Mormonism.
Brigham Young had over 50 wives and 56 children, but none has better name recognition than daughter Susie Young Gates. She lived from 1856 and died in 1933. Yet she, like so many women of Mormonism's past, has remained a mystery to most church members. In Susie Young Gates, Romney Burke, the author, paints a portrait of a strong woman who rose to prominence within the church, fought for the rights of women throughout the country, yet dealt with personal trials and her share of heartbreak.
Now, we're down to our last couple of articles here. And I was just at BYU just yesterday, Al. Like I said, I'm out here in Utah on a business trip, and
Did you happen to attend a volleyball?
I did. And this is our article here, which says that
Did you happen to yell racial slurs at this?
No, sir, I did not. Absolutely not.
Okay, I'm glad it wasn't you.
No, it was not me. So this is an article that's on CNN. This is making the rounds. It's Brigham Young University apologizes and bans fan over racist slurs during a volleyball match. And this was on August 27th. 2022.
Yep.
So what's going on in this article, Al?
Matt Foster brings this one to us. He's reported that there was, the godmother of Duke volleyball player Rachel Richardson said in a tweet that Richardson, who is a black player, was called racial slurs during the game at BYU's Smith Fieldhouse in Provo. And you were in the Smith Fieldhouse at this time.
Yes, that's so. We're bringing you the news right from the source. In fact, I was there before this article dropped. So we will go to any length. I will fly across the country from right outside of Washington, D.C., all the way to Utah to bring you the most important Mormon News Roundup articles. So yes, I was at the Smith Fieldhouse. Now, like I said, I'm out here in Utah visiting for a couple of days on a business trip, and I'm staying with my mom, who lives right by Cougar Stadium there in Provo, Utah. And she asked me out. She said, "Hey, do you want to?" This was like on Friday, Saturday night. She said, "Hey, do you want to go work out with me?" Which is very surprising. She's usually doesn't work out a lot, but if she's looking at me and saying, "Hey, do you want to work out?" Maybe I need to get the message. Maybe I need to get into the gym. So yes, we went over to the BYU. She's a retired faculty member at BYU, and we went over to the faculty gym, which is in the Smith Fieldhouse, in a different portion of it than where the volleyball game was. So we're there. There is thousands of these mostly freshmen at this volleyball game. It is packed to the gills. And then as soon as we left, literally a few minutes later, I got an alert on my phone message that said that this volleyball with the N-word and all that is coming out.
So what happened is this fan who's not a student, it was just some guy, every time this volleyball player went to serve, he would yell the N-word at her.
That is dreadful.
And then when she'd go to sit down on the bench, he'd say, you better watch yourself going out to the bus. Yeah, it was... So they called the police, had the police come down and sit on the bench next to her to keep her safe.
Man.
I mean, it's really unfortunate that in this day and age this sort of thing had to happen. But as you probably noticed in our neck of the woods over here, D-Bays, we do have a lot of Trump supporters. And unfortunately with the Make America Great Again rallies, a lot of that brought out the Make America White Again people, and it seems like this is one of those types of guys.
It's really unfortunate. BYU did. They took responsibility. They apologized for it. They said when a student athlete or a fan comes to a BYU sporting event, they should be treating other people with love and respect. We banned that person, and we apologize to Duke University. Now, unfortunately, this type of thing is all too common in college sports and professional sports, for that matter. But I think what's interesting is whenever it happens at BYU, it seems to get picked up really fast. Why do you suppose that is? Am I just imagining this?
I think BYU puts itself there kind of in the spotlight. It makes a lot of what would you call it? It makes a lot of it has a reputation, and so moments like this help reinforce that reputation, D-Base.
Yeah, if you think back to BYU's and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints' somewhat troubling history with racism, especially the priesthood and temple ban that was ended in 1978, people still remember that, and it's kind of a lightning rod. So when they see these negative racist things that happen at BYU sporting events, it really brings up those past memories. And because the church has never apologized in any meaningful way for its racist past, and remember, Brigham Young himself made many really horrible racist statements. That's the name of the university itself. It doesn't seem like a very welcoming place for a student athlete who's black to come onto a university who's named after someone who made many racist comments. And so it just ignites the passions. People are really ready to jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so I don't blame them, because this is something where your namesake is that kind of person. I mean, this is the sort of person that Brigham Young was. If he had been, like, say, a Southern Confederate general, his statue would have been torn down long ago.
Yeah, in fact, the Black Menaces, they ask people different quotes, and they say, did this quote, they come and interview students on campus, and they say, did this quote come from Brigham Young, or did it come from a Confederate general? And a lot of times people can't tell the difference in between the two.
Yeah, exactly.
So because the church has such a difficulty with moving on from these issues, it's a very hot stove. It's like a lightning rod at any of these issues. So I was there, and I just want to let you know that I was not. I didn't yell anything to anyone.
I'm glad it wasn't you, D-Base.
Yeah, it wasn't me.
To whoever that guy is, and anybody that condones that kind of behavior, would you guys just grow up?
Yeah.
I mean, people are people, regardless of the color of their skin. We do have to live together in this world, okay?
Yeah, what's interesting is my mom, who's somewhat aging, and she saw the article that popped up in her newsfeed the next morning as well. And she said, hey, did you see what happened at the volleyball game that we were at? I mean, we didn't watch the volleyball game because we were there to work out inside of the gym. But she said, did you see what happened? And I said, yes, I did. And I said, well, Mom, why do you think that this happened? And she said, well, it's the rhetoric in our public discourse has really been poisoned in the last few years. Thanks in part to a lot of the boisterous and really the over the top personalities like Donald Trump, like some of these other characters.
Yeah, the Proud Boys.
Yeah, the Proud Boys, and these students, they've grown up. They're only 18 years old. They've grown up with this type of rhetoric and making it seem normalized. And there's one last thing. We were on campus and we pulled up to, we were driving onto campus and there was hundreds and hundreds of cars. And I was like, hey, Mom, school is not starting until Monday. How can there be a sporting event before school starts? And yet, sure enough, there was a volleyball game. So this is before school is starting. You have a lot of the freshmen on campus who are there ready to go, but they don't have homework. They don't have classes. It's before the semester begins. So there's nothing on campus to do except for go to this volleyball game. So it was absolutely packed.
Yeah, gotta have something to do on Friday night, right?
With mostly freshmen. And most of these freshmen have grown up in the, in the Donald Trump era of very divisive rhetoric.
True.
And that's what she blamed it on. Of course, she's a big-time Democrat, so she's going to blame anything she can on Trump, but still, I couldn't disagree with her. Okay, so we have two last articles to get through.
Yep. This next one, we're heading south to Ephraim, Utah. Gebhardt Daily has informed us that August 27th, the LDS Church President Russell M. Nelson has returned to the valley his family helped settle to celebrate the planned Ephraim, Utah temple.
Yeah, now this was on August 27th, 2022, from the Gephardt Daily Staff. Now, so he presided on this, and it was somewhat of a surprise.
Yeah.
I didn't see this announced anywhere.
No, this one he just kind of flew under the radar, drove down to San Pete Valley, and did his thing.
Yeah, and if you think about the San Pete Valley, by the way, I used to teach. I was a part-time faculty member at Snow College for a couple of years, so I used to spend some time down there. I love San Pete County. I love Ephraim. I love Manti. Those places are just wonderful. It's just really beautiful down there. But if you think about it, this is a 39,000 square foot temple that, according to the Widow's Mite report, costs about $40 million.
Yeesh.
Okay,
it's a big one.
How far away is Ephraim from the nearest temple, which is in Manti?
I'll say this: in northern Utah, Brigham City is further away from Ogden than Ephraim is from Moroni.
Yep.
Or from the Manti.
Well, Moroni's a little farther away, but
yeah.
It's not more than 10 minutes away. Can we put it that way?
Exactly. Like what, 6 miles?
Yeah, it's not very far. And so, and the word on the street is the Manti temple completely overtaxed and just totally full, and they're running it 24 hours a day? It's not what I've heard.
Well, how can it be? I mean, this is very rural Utah. These are communities that I think Manti has served the bulk of central Utah for decades, ever since it was built. And, we're talking about maybe 20 to 40,000 people ever.
At most. In fact, I think the Manti temple was, I want to say it was built or dedicated in about 1880.
Yeah, it was built before, it was about the same time as the Logan temple. Those two were built and dedicated while the Salt Lake Temple was under construction.
Yes, so I know this for a fact. St. George is 1877, and the Salt Lake Temple was 93, I believe.
I believe that's right.
About 18, and so the Logan and Manti temples are about
in the 80s.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's not a densely populated area, that's for sure. The church has 282 temples in operation, under construction or under renovation, and it just makes me wonder, why are we dropping $40 million on a temple that is literally right next to another temple? It just,
in a community of 3,500 people.
Yeah, it's a very small town.
Very small town.
Yeah, and if we could just if the church would just let us know the reason behind it. At no point in time has anybody ever come out with a definitive reason of saying, okay, we used to do temples in the past that if a number of Melchizedek priesthood holders or a certain amount of converts, or if a new nation was open, it was too far away.
Yeah, you're right. There used to be some sort of algorithm or formula that they would follow in order to place temples.
Some kind of a basic rationale.
Yeah.
But now there's no rationale at all, and nobody will answer the question. Just what gives? Just tell us what the reason is. If the reason is, well, we want to have a temple in every person's backyard. We don't care how much it costs. We want people in these temples as much as possible, and we want them to dot the world, and we want there to be 50,000 temples on earth. Okay, just tell us that.
Yeah.
Okay, just let me know.
Because, I mean, all that we can do is speculate at this point, and my personal speculation, Dives, is I think the church really likes to be able to see one temple from another. I think they like to be able to go over to, say in Cache Valley, they're building the Smithfield Temple. They want to go to the Smithfield Temple and be able to see the Logan Temple. They want to go to Ogden and see the Bountiful Temple. They want to go to, from the Salt Lake Temple. Well, the Salt Lake Temple is kind of surrounded by skyscrapers. But if you go up on the mountain, say Ensign Peak, you can see, 5 temples now?
You can see
probably even more.
If you're on the top of Ensign Peak, you can definitely see the Salt Lake Temple.
Yeah.
You can see the new Taylorsville Temple, which is under completion. You can see the Draper Temple.
The Draper Temple.
You can see the 2 South Jordan temples.
Yeah.
You
the Ochre Mountain Temple. Yeah.
That's
one of them.
That's one
right.
of them. That's 5.
Yeah.
You can see the Bountiful Temple.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you can see further north than that.
No, but that's a pretty good chunk of temples still.
Yeah, that's
one location.
Yeah, and since, as we've said, that the average temple is about $35 million, that's a lot of real estate.
Yeah. So that's my best speculation. I know that, I've heard speculation online of money laundering through temples. I don't know. I really buy into that. But I definitely think that the church really likes, ever since they built the Timpanogos Temple, the Mount Timpanogos Temple, and we're able to see the Provo Temple from the Mount Timpanogos Temple, they're like, that would be really cool. We should do this with more places.
Yeah, I mean they're building another Orem temple that I drove past just a little while ago.
Yeah.
That we covered on this broadcast that had caught fire a couple of weeks ago.
That's right. And so we've got the Orem temple there, the Provo temple, and then Provo Center Street temple.
Yep.
That used to be the old Provo Tabernacle.
Yep.
So I mean, yeah, they just really like flooding the earth with temples.
Yep, I just wish there was just a little bit more rationale. Just pull back the mirror, or pull back the curtain just an inch, and let us know.
Give us something.
Yeah, give us something.
Because otherwise, we're going to speculate.
I guess so. And you get what you pay for on this podcast. We'll just put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, our last article here is the inspired launch of the Mormon Movie Reviews. We've been hinting to that. And the Mormon Movie Reviews, Al, what is the Mormon Movie Reviews?
It is official. D-Vase has now come out with a YouTube channel where he will review different episodes of his show. Will be reviewing old Mormon movies from the vault.
Yes.
Yep.
Now, I've got the first one up there, and I've got several others that are in place. But basically, D-Vase and Al, and also my entire crew, we're going to go way back through the archives of LDS, of nostalgic Mormon videos, to bring you some of the most entertaining and obscure videos that have been produced by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, BYU, and unofficial LDS-centric filmmakers. The show is going to highlight the wonderful faith-promoting cinematic gems right along with a few cringeworthy whoppers. And you aren't going to read these reviews on movie reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. So join us on this Mormon cinematic adventure and watch to see what masterpieces or flops we'll uncover when we queue up the beta and VHS tapes. So just go on over to YouTube and search for Mormon Movie Reviews. You can also drop us an email. Drop me an email at MormonMovieReviews@gmail.com. Now, you helped with the pilot, Al, right, on this?
Yeah. So I collaborated with you a little bit just to help put it together. This, I'll tell you, D-Vase has really done his research, and I think that anybody that has grown up watching movies such as the Under the Banner of Heaven, not that one, the Windows of Heaven.
It's going to be hard to have grown up watching Under the Banner of Heaven.
Maybe for anybody listening to this in the archives, 20 years from now.
Okay, yeah, 20 years. That's a good point.
We'll get to those eventually. But for anybody that grew up watching the old church videos from the 50s, 60s, 70s, even the 80s, there's a lot of really good ones out there. And conveniently, the church has allowed the copyright to lapse on a lot of these, such as the Windows of Heaven. And so what D-Vase is doing is he's doing a very deep dive research into the history of these videos, into the facts behind them. And I've watched the pilot here. It's a really, really good episode. He delves into what the actual history was, shows you kind of the differences between what really happened versus what's portrayed as happening. For instance, they portray in this, one of the little details here, they portray that Lorenzo Snow was living in the Beehive house at the time. D-Vase points out that Lorenzo Snow didn't actually move in until the next year. So, it's just one of those little things, kind of fun tidbits of useless information that you'll be able to find out, and you'll learn a lot more than by just watching it. And he's got a lot more coming down the pike. They've got the next one you're doing is the Three Witnesses.
Three Witnesses is on tap. And then after that, we're doing the First Vision, which is the 1976 version. And then we're going to do the Lost Manuscript. Mm-hmm. And then finally, we're going to do For Time or Eternity. So I've got the first 5 lined up. Mm-hmm. So if you're interested in that, please let us know. And speaking of this podcast, by the way, you can drop us a voicemail. If you go to our show notes, you can drop us a voicemail. We're also on Twitter at @NewsMormon. You can, if you like what we're doing, you can send us a donation on Patreon. We have a couple of tier levels there, $5 a month, $10 a month. You just let us know what you can do. And we're also on Facebook and YouTube.
Yes, we are. So as we're parting with you, we want to give our final shout out to Weird Alma for letting us use this episode's music. As with every episode, thanks so much for you ruminating with us on the great and spacious Beehive. And remember, no unhallowed hand can stop this podcast from progressing.
When it comes to nicknames of the church, such as LDS Church, the Mormon Church, to remove the Lord's name from the Lord's church is a major victory for Satan.
Satan.
Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a being with no moral constraints. My number one goal is to hurt the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.